И сегодня впервые в Украине я хочу вам представить Sridhara Solura. На самом деле это удивительный человек. Он основатель в Hewlett Packard направления, которое занимается специфическими гаджетами. Все вы слышали про то, что сейчас делаются часы от Hewlett Packard?
Да.
Это вот он, этот человек это сделал. И расскажет вам много всего интересного. И я передаю ему слово. I said only good things.
Yeah, don't do it.
Я передаю слово Шридharу, и он более детально расскажет о себе и о том, каким образом монетизировать свои продукты и какие тренды сегодня существуют в индустрии.
I have no idea what she said, okay? But I will try to learn the language, at least a few words, the next time I'm here. And with that said, I think there are a lot of people here. You know, I'm too old, so let me wear my glasses to see how many people are here. Wow. I have to say this. If this had happened in San Francisco, there would not be so many people. I'll tell you why. They don't come unless you give them free pizza and beer. So I'm very happy that you guys are here. I want to make sure that this is worth your time. You know, you walk away with something that is substantial. I want to talk to you about different kinds of business models that are driven by new technologies. We live in interesting times, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, and so make sure that you learn to raise your hands and answer some of these questions. You know, I get really bored listening to my own voice, so I would like to listen to yours too tonight, okay? With that said, let's start this off. I want to give you some background about myself. I went to an engineering school back in India, and this was in electronics and computer science, electromagnetic waves. So, you know, I'm really good at fast Fourier transforms and DSPs. In the early days of my career, I worked with, how many of you here know about Alta Vista? Gotta learn to raise your hands this evening. Okay, Alta Vista. Go take a look at Alta Vista. So I was involved in the earlier days of some of the products there. And then I went to business school. Big mistake. I was actually a developer, right? I would write algorithms for big switches and routers. You know, even now if you go look at my name, it's there in some of the underlying voice over IP protocols, like session initiation protocol. And then I went to business school, and then went on to do ventures. In the first part, I started something called CloudPrint, which became ePrint for HP. Now it's there in like 60 million printers. Also developed an application, you know, which has now been downloaded over 30 million times, around 26% monthly active users. And very recently, I launched a wearable. Everybody have launched a wearable, so I said, come on. I launched a wearable, and so far the response has been good. So that's my background. And feel free at the end to ask me any questions. I'm very responsive on Twitter because it's only 140 characters, you know. You send me an email, it's going to sit for a long time, but if you tweet, you know, I usually get back faster, okay? With that said, let's start. Hopefully it's going to work this time.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. How many of you here know the world's population today? Not exact number, but approximately. 7 billion. Yeah, and it's growing. It's going to be 8+ billion in the next 10 years. You know what happens when the world's population becomes so big?
Nothing big.
Really? Hey, you're going to have kids and grandkids, man. So, I'll tell you this. Today, there are 40% of the people who live in the cities. When the world's population becomes 8 billion, 60% of the people are going to move into cities. You know what else is going to happen? Trying to own something becomes really, really difficult. You will start to share. People who were born before computers became prevalent are called digital immigrants. You know, I am a digital immigrant. I was born in the 70s. The hippie age, no hair though. So, I was born in the 70s. People who are born now with computers, they are called digital immigrants. But when you move into an era when you have 8 billion people, you need to start sharing as much as possible. The sharing economy is going to take off, and those individuals are called digital hippies, right? So remember, the business models are going to change when you have 8 billion people. You're going to move into an era of digital hippies where you share, the sharing economy, Uber, Airbnb, those things are going to change. So every time I do something out there, I want each one of you to think of the potential business models that are going to change, right? Around 5 years ago, when you went to a big company and asked them, are you going to put the data in the cloud? They would like throw up. You know, they would think it is blasphemy. But now, most of the government agencies are putting the data in the cloud. And that is a process of sharing, right? Anything that you put in the cloud, you're basically, it's a multi-tenant system. So 8 billion people. I forget this. 200 billion devices connected to the internet by 2020. Does anybody know how many billion devices are connected today?
More than
140.
9 billion today. 9 billion today connected to the internet. According to Cisco and McKinsey, it's going to be 1 trillion. You know, I can't count that much, but you know, it's really large, okay? In addition to that, I think I have to be on this side. Right? How many emails do you get? Approximately every day?
10, 15.
A lot.
I don't count. My inbox will never be 0. Right? So it's over for me, man. It's a lot of emails. And just look at what's happening to our lives. There is a deluge of messages, you know. It's coming at me really, really fast. So if you're doing a startup, or if you're trying to do a better idea, what do you focus on? You know, this leads to a world of confusion. Let's look at this. Brain capacity remains constant, but the data that's coming towards us is like a tsunami of information that's being thrown at us. It's not going to be easy going further, right? So, what do? What happens to your time? Most of the time, right? So, if you actually look at an average human being, I think some of us here are abnormal, you know. Basically, you only have 41% of your time for work and play. You know, how many of you here actually spend, you know, 40% of your time sleeping? Even if you do that, please don't sleep during my presentation, okay? I appreciate that. But just remember 2 things. If you're going to create any technology for 8 billion people, where you have a deluge of information that's coming at you, focus on 2 kinds of technologies. Just 2 kinds of technologies. One that can enhance your ability to understand and digest the information. 2, anything that can automate things for you. Things that can be done for you and not done by you. Right? And you will see, when I talk about technology, I'll talk about contextual computing. And you will see how, using contextual computing, things are actually done for you. Robotics, things are done for you. And I'm going to talk to you about those technologies. And technologies that can amplify your abilities, you know, summarize information for you and present it in a way that's relevant to you. Okay? So, this morning, I I was listening to a gentleman who was standing here, you know, John, and he was talking about a person who is data-driven, based in the Valley, and I think she's one of the most awesomest individuals when it comes to analytics. Her name is Mary Meeker. If there's one person that you want to follow on Twitter, right, you want to try and follow Mary Meeker, right? And Mary Meeker put this slide up in 2012. Today I saw John presenting this morning about Mary Meeker, and I thought, hey, you know what? This would be a good segue. What have I told you so far is the world's population is increasing, and if you focus on technologies that amplify your ability to absorb information, or technologies that can automate things for you, you know, you will really do well. And business models associated with the sharing economy, the digital hippies, you will actually do well. Those are very high level statements. But I'm going to break it down and take you down very, very quickly, right? In the last 100 years, there have been only 4 technologies that have achieved 60% penetration in the Western economy. And those 4 technologies are, in the 1920s, it was the AM radio. In the 1950s, it was the rise of television. In the early 2000s, it was the internet. And after a family company in the US went down in 2008, that was supposed to be a joke. The company is Lehman Brothers, but it's okay. And in 2008, mobility started taking off. But you know what's so funny about this? All this has happened in and around times of economic recession in the West, economic depression and recession in the West. How many of you here are math students? No one? Gosh. I'm just kidding. So, in mathematics, there is something called correlation function. So, if you look at correlation function, if you look at recession and technology, you get a very interesting correlation as such. You know, and the beauty of this is each one of these technologies has been more revolutionary than the other. Let's just take mobile for example. I'll go back to the world's population, right? The world's population is still 7 billion. I think a few more babies were born since I said that, right? And the number of people who have mobile phones, what is that number?
0.
Mobile phones? It's there. I'm just checking if you guys are still awake. It's there, man. It's 5.4 billion. Right? Out of 7 billion, world's population, 5.4 billion have mobile phones. The number of people who have smartphones is 1.6 billion and it's growing. Can someone tell me here how many people are on social networking? I'm sure all of you. But in the world,
1 billion.
More than 2 billion.
2 billion.
it is actually 1.6 billion again.
Smart.
Last year and before last year, if you actually go back and look at the number of people on social networks and number of smartphone users, there has been a 1-to-1 correlation. Isn't that interesting? That the number of people on social media and the number of people who own smartphones, the numbers are the same. It may not be the same person, but the numbers are the same. I want you to remember that. So, since 2008, not only has mobile taken off, but people on social media and social networking has taken off, right? So, remember the trends, and I'm going to go back to some business models and ask you some questions here, right? And there is a person, there's a well-known theory about society called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. How many of you know that? All right, thank you. And it says, for a human being, you have dignity, water, food, shelter. And that's the hierarchy of needs for a human being. But if you look at the number of people who are below the poverty line people who make less than, $1 with the current exchange rate, with the Ukrainian currency, it's around 12 something, right? Less than that a day, that is 2.6 billion people in this world. But there are 5.4 billion people having phones. So the hierarchy of needs now has changed from water, food, mobile, and then shelter. That has really happened. Think about the fundamental change mobile has brought to a person. Even before you want shelter, you want a mobile device. And that is real. And that's why I said it is revolutionary. Right? And then we are moving into a world of hyper wearables, which is wearables. There's also a pill that you can take called digestibles. And I'm not kidding. It's actually, if you have the pill in your body, you can then authenticate with the computer that you're working on. So it's digestibles. And so I said we have mobile. It's revolutionary. Is that okay? You agree to that? Does everybody agree? All right. Social media is also revolutionary. The way we have done things. If mobile is rising, social media is rising at the same rate. Come on. It's also revolutionary. Is that correct? All right. Cloud. I think cloud is awfully revolutionary because we are moving into the world of being a digital hippie. And we are moving into the world of a sharing economy. And multi-tenancy is the way to go. Almost any of the startups that I've seen at Happy Farm today, most of them, anything to do with mobile app, they have a cloud-based offering. It's not, nobody's running a dedicated server. It would be absolutely stupid if you're running a dedicated server. Even for high security applications, you can use a multi-tenant system, right? So the relevance of cloud has become prominent since 2008. So I think that's also revolutionary. And wow, analytics. Let me stop here and ask you some questions. How many of you here have smartphones? Wow. The problem with that question is, I can't ask the question the other way. I can't say how many of you carry dumb phones. People get offended, right? Can someone tell me the number of sensors? I see a flashy iPhone 5S with that guy. So can you tell me how many sensors are there in your phone?
7 and Samsung about 5. Or 10, 12.
Around 7 sensors. iPhone 5 has 7 sensors. Samsung, how many of you have a Samsung Galaxy? Yes, Bluetooth. How many sensors? The latest S5, right? 10 sensors. What do you think those sensors are doing? Sensing, of course. Where do you think the data is going? Let me tell you this. You would be surprised. I don't know how many of you know this. Today, with the existing mobile operating systems and guaranteed with the existing apps that you have, if there is a change of state, for those of you who are computer geeks, change of state, at the minimum, your ambient light sensor and your microphone samples voice data and light data. So, if I walk into let's say, a mall, how many of you know a mall? Come on. Alright, you walk into a mall, let's say you go to a coffee shop, and next to a coffee shop is a place where you buy clothing, fashionable clothing. Your phone knows exactly you're in a coffee shop. You know how? Because there are thousands of people who have gone into the coffee shop with their phone in their pocket, and they have stood there in the line, there is no motion. Ambient light sensor, let's say you're holding the phone in your hand, it takes a sample, there's a noise sample, the phone knows the sound of an espresso machine. If you didn't know that, that's the reason anytime you have a phone with you, a smartphone with you, the sensor is continuously collecting data for you. And where do you think that data is going? That's a whole lot of data, right? From 10 sensors, if all the data is going back to the cloud and being connected, what do you think is happening to the data? It's being collected in a garbage called Hadoop. How many of you know Hadoop, right? It's being collected there. And people are analyzing that data and delivering products and services that are relevant to you. It's so simple, and that data is being collected. So I will tell you one thing. The most important natural resource, you understand natural resource, right? The most important natural resource in this world is not diamond. But please don't tell that to your girlfriends, okay? It is data. It is the most important, and if you're doing any startup and you're not collecting data, you're doing something wrong. Let me go back to the business model. In any startup that you're doing, collect data, and at some point in time, have a business model to monetize on that data. You have to do that. I've already spoken to you about 2 business models, and I want you to keep a track at the end of this session. These are all technology and trends-driven changes that are driving new behaviors. Any questions so far? Okay.
I have a question. What
Yes.
what is the entity name of this espresso machine tracker? I want to work with it.
Yeah, there's a company called ARO. And this company, for example, is funded by Paul Allen. How many of you know Paul Allen? All right, Bill Gates, Paul Allen, rich man, Seattle. Okay, Paul Allen, and there is an app called Saga LifeLog, SAGA. It's a life logging app, and they'll track anything you want. You don't want to know. All right, so 1 trillion connected devices. Look at this. Lots and lots of devices. It's a deluge. Everything is going to be connected to the internet.
Yeah.
Your body, your car, your cat, right? Everything. We'll have a chip on our shoulder. But having said that, I want to tell you something here, and I want you to follow the business models associated with every aspect of this slide. And after that, I promise, I'm going to go fast, right? So that you guys can go have your dinners and okay. The year is 2008. I know it's 2010 there, but it's 2008. There were around 300 million devices connected to the internet. They were mostly PCs, desktops, laptops. There was no tablet. Right? Tablet came in 2010, June 7th. Right? So, before that, you had like 300 million devices, then you had all this loosely coupled way of connecting to the internet with protocols called WAP. They made the protocol, and the phones came around 5 years later. The early acronym for WAP was "Where are the phones?" There was no phones for some time. Nonetheless, everybody made money around the device. Microsoft, they charged a lot of money for the operating system. Correct?
Yes.
Today, how many of you pay money for any operating system? If anybody does, I would laugh at them, right? Nobody pays money for an operating system. This was just recently, guys. Recently. That's why Microsoft is going through a major reorganization. Another company that made money around the box, Intel, their chipsets are so profitable, right? But do you know how much money they make on a mobile chipset? Nothing. Absolutely, it's very little. And all the companies who worked around the box, made a lot of money. And this dollar sign shows where you can make money. And then you had the cloud. The cloud was not connected to the operating system in any way. You had some media streaming, and you had e-commerce. E-commerce has been there for quite some time. So the cloud was out there hanging, just connected through the browser. And then you had money that's made around the box. Now, let's look at 2014. We are in this world, we are from 300 million, we are at 3 billion devices. Suddenly, there is no money to be made around the box. It's actually a big joke. If someone says, hey, I'm going to make a tablet and make a money, unless you're Apple, or maybe Samsung, but That's it. You only have 2 players. Everybody else are losing money. Right? No one makes money around the box anymore. It's over. Right? How do you make money? You make money above the box. And there is a very strong connection to the cloud. Every operating system is free. OS X, free. Android free, Chrome free. You know, slowly even Microsoft is moving towards free operating system. Right? Not fast enough, but slowly. Right? And with that said, 2016, I've kept the number 3 constant. You're increasing the number of connected devices. Now, where are you going to make money? Unless you're Apple and you can do below the stack kick-ass innovation, your money is going to be made in the cloud. And just see, I keep increasing the number of C's in every aspect of evolution. Every wave of evolution, there is another C. So, if you're a mobile app developer today, if you're not adding a community part into your app, you're doing something wrong. You just can't add, content and commerce in a platform. You need to add community in some shape, way, or form. And if you want your app or a solution to survive 2 years from now, if you're not adding context, trust me, you'll be doing something else. So, your business models and money to be made is up there in the cloud unless you're sitting on some significant intellectual property to do below the stack innovation. So the summary is we are moving from a world of glass slabs. You understand what is a glass slab, right? We are moving from a world of glass slabs to the world of enchanted objects. I thought this was getting to be evening, so a little bit of romance, right? Enchanted objects. So remember, anything that you do, you're going to focus on contextual aspects, collect data, sharing economy. Those are the things that you should be having in your mind when you're building products and services and monetizing business models. Okay? This is awfully interesting because we started with a recession in the Western economy. In 2008, everybody was panicking. Oh my God, jobs are going, GDP going down, economy shrinking. And I will show you a slide. If you had put your bets on mobile, social, cloud, and analytics in 28, if you had put, let's say, $1,000, you will see how much money you would have made so far during recession. And that is awfully important. And we are moving to the next era of enchanted objects, away from the era of glass slabs. And that's the era of Internet of Things. And it's like a perfect storm. If mobile, social, cloud, and analytics did not come together, we would not catapult into the era of IoT. It's just because this has happened together, we are in this situation. And we all should be very happy because all this is happening in our lifetime. We have not seen technologies like this come together in such a significant way in one lifetime. You saw that, right? In the 1920s, there was radio and then television after like 30 years. Now, if you actually see, the rate of innovation is like absolutely positively fast. Okay, IoT characteristics. If you look at this, the money to be made is not on the device. The money to be made is all in the blue area. It's all monetizing data. John came up to me earlier in the evening and we were talking about one of the startups that's in this group. And he said, Shri, I think this company has to focus, not just on subscription, but focus on making money out of the data. I won't go into the details, but that's the right place to put your head around because you have to make money around the data in some shape, way, or form. At least collect it for now, right? That's awfully important. Won't go into any more details, but then the engine behind data is changing industries. It's changing health industry. It's changing travel, transportation, hospitality. In the next 10 years, guys, every industry will go through a gut-wrenching transformation. Very painful transformation. And Mark Andreessen, one of the VCs from Andreessen Horowitz says, industries are going to go through, business models are going to go through a liquefaction, right? And I'm going to tell you what liquefaction of business models are, okay? Just bear with me as I tell you a story. And I use the word context. For that you need data. We'll talk about contextual computing, and I'll give you pragmatic examples. How many of you know about Elon Musk? Okay, everybody knows about Elon Musk. That's good. So Elon Musk's company, he has a car company, right? Tesla. And Tesla's one interesting part. Last year, New York Times is considered very pure for journalistic integrity. Means they always tell the truth, at least most of the times. So, on the east part of the United States, the winters are slightly more harsher. Northeast part of the United States. And he took a Tesla for a drive on the eastern corridor, the northeastern corridor of the United States, in the winter, and came back with a report and said, this car is not ready for winters. Within 24 hours, Elon Musk in his blog said that the reporter had lied. Integrity for a journalist is everything, right? And the car reported back that this journalist had only charged the battery to 26%. Whereas in his little book, he had a little red book and he was writing his log. He had said he's charged 100%. Okay, maybe made a mistake, we can forgive him. But he also went around a long parking lot 46 times. And Elon Musk knew everything about it. Because the car was basically sending information back to the cloud. It's very easy, but I said something earlier, it is not about catching a journalist saying something wrong. It is about the significant impact of this to the car industry. I don't know much about Ukraine, but in the US, we have what is called car leasing. Do you lease cars in Ukraine? So you pay some money initially, and every month you pay a little bit more money, and after 3 years or 2 years, you give the car back to them, right? It's called car leasing. So, you know what this does to the car leasing industry? If I were to lease, let's say a BMW for $5,000 when I sign for the car, and I pay $500 a month, from next year onwards, it'll be the same rate, like $5,500 for the first month. From the second month onwards, depending on how badly I drive, and the average distance I drive from the epicenter, say from my home to work, my lease rates will go up and down. That is a change in business model, isn't it? Hitherto unknown to the car leasing industry. I can take every industry. I can take hospitality, I can take healthcare. Every industry is going to go through a gut-wrenching transformation. Right? So, you need to understand that. And the contextual aspects of it, it's an easy algorithm. All it does is it munges location information, your attitudinal information, your preferential information, puts it all together so that things are done for you, so that it's not done by you, right? And that can only happen with the world of contextual computing. Remember, I started with that tsunami of information coming at you on two kinds of technologies that you can bet on, right? And this is the engine behind those technologies, right? All right, wow. Health insurance and the human body. You know how many different kinds of wearables were there? around 2 Wednesdays ago. I was just counting. If fitness tracking is one function, there are 146 different kinds of wearables that are around today. One to so that you don't slouch, one for you to walk properly. Every aspect, the wearables can connect. And the sad part? Every part of the human body is taken. Even that is taken. Okay? So, it's over, guys. And that is changing the healthcare industry. In UK, there is a health insurance company, and I was there, it was called Bupa, right? And if you expose your number of steps that you take, to the healthcare industry, your premiums will go up and down. Suddenly that song from Police, every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you. I know it's getting romantic, but hey. So, home warranty. That industry has changed. Talk to any manufacturer of refrigerator. Connected home, how many players are there in connected home? You don't want to know. I mean, it's huge. Everybody has jumped into the world of connected home because they want to monitor you. Why do you think Google paid $3 billion for a thermostat? So, an example there, right? And business models are also changing. I wish I had more time. I would have explained to you, how some of those business models have changed. Well, some examples. I am a runner. I'm one of a kind who runs without being chased, okay? So, and I have a busy schedule. I travel quite a bit, and I'm competing in races. Running is not in my DNA. I'm an Indian. I'm good for computers. And anytime, I have a calendar, a busy calendar. And let's say I'm with my wife at a mall. Depending on where I am, and if it's raining outside and if my calendar permits, the wearable can now tell you that you can go run 5 laps here, 45 minutes, just go do it, and nudge you to do things, and that's possible. In connected home, after I finish my run, let's say I come back home, when I'm very close to my door, automatically proximity sensors, today you have like a gazillion devices that can do it today. Proximity sensors can open your door, it can adjust your temperature, and then it can also recommend that I'm becoming fat. No, chicken parmesan is very fatty. So, it can put the right kind of food, right? So, things like that can basically happen. Magical things are already happening. It's not actually very well connected right now, but it's moving in that direction, right? It's like Windows 98, Windows Vista, Windows Days, okay? Anyway, but then I also told you that we are moving into a world. We are moving into a very strange world. We are moving into a world where things are done for you and not done by you. We are moving into a world of robotics. It started off with Roomba. How many of you know about Roomba? Oh, it's beautiful. How many of you have Roomba? No. Not anymore. Not anymore, okay. So, early experimentation with Roomba. The guy who started Roomba now runs a hardware accelerator in Boston called Dragon Innovation, right? And these guys have a lot of experience in robotics. But things are done for you. Wouldn't you like it if someone cleaned your house every day? I would love it. And then, think about automatic cars. This is happening, you like it or not. Even John mentioned this morning about, Google self-driving cars. In the Silicon Valley, we see that all the time. I would love it, especially if I'm sitting in traffic. Sitting in traffic, I would rather that I'm on the back, Wi-Fi, or listening to music. And, someone else driving for you is such a good feeling. But then, it's changing lives. You know how many people die in vehicular homicides or car accidents every year? Can someone just take a number?
100,000.
It's 1.5 million people. A lot of people die in car accidents. And everything is caused by human error. Right? A majority, at least 99+%. And you know how many miles the self-driving cars have driven so far? 100,000 miles. You know how many accidents? One. Caused by human error. Looks like that one Google engineer touched the steering wheel like this. So one accident, 700,000 miles. You're going to save lives. That's about changing life. Gene sequencing. Trying to understand what you might be vulnerable for. That's about changing lives. I told you about how industries are changing. This is about changing lives, right? And see what's going to happen to different industries just with robotics. I thought I'll tell you how robotics is going to change lives. The other day I saw a tweet about humans need not apply. An advertisement, an employment advertisement, which says humans need not apply, and that's coming soon. There's actually an article. Just go search for humans need not apply. You'll see a series of articles on what's happening with robotics. This is going to replace cabs and truck drivers. It's going to happen, we like it or not. Think about the jobs that are going to be lost and changed. Right? Car sharing. Ride sharing is a big thing in some parts of the Western economy, and especially in Eastern economies like China and in India. India has like around 1.3 billion people, right? And you have to share as much as possible. I hope this happens, right? And not many people will die. That's already being tested at this point in time. Yeah, Amazon with drone. Today, this morning, John was talking about how there is, in South Africa, there's a music festival that happened where there was an iPhone app where you could order, it was an open air festival, of course, you could order beer, with the app. It's not bad, right? How many of you have gone to music festivals here? And remembered what happened the next day? So, when you go to a music festival, there are two things that all of us hate. Standing in line for beer and going to the bathroom. Right? And so, if in some shape, way or form, technology can make at least the first part less painful, it'll be okay. Today, in some of the stadiums in the US, you can actually, let's say you were walking up from your seat to go to the bathroom, you can actually, in an app, this is the New England Patriots, it's an American football thingy. You can actually, click and say, you're going to the bathroom, you'll get a code, and there will be a bathroom allocated for you based on, how far you are. They're trying out some amazing new things today, right? Well, robots, in space, shopping, companion. It might start with need for disabled people and things like that, and then it might become something that's normal. So it's changing lives, and most importantly, these business models are challenging incumbents. How many of you understand incumbents? Incumbents are people who are already in business. A Silicon Valley company challenging the Michigan auto industry. Never heard of, but that's happening. And I will tell you, disintermediation is going to happen, and every incumbent in every industry is going to be challenged. The way Microsoft was challenged, with free operating systems. Every industry is going to go through a massive, massive gut-wrenching transformation, but it's going to change lives. And that's the beauty of where we are going. And I said, what if you had invested in 2008 in companies that did mobile, social, and cloud, and analytics? Can you see that? I'm kicking myself. You must have figured out by now that I'm not that smart, right? So, all I'm trying to say is, where was the recession? There is also one very important philosophical lesson that we need to take away. Anytime you are down, remember there is a freaking phenomenal opportunity in front of you. And as budding entrepreneurs here, in the Happy Farm ecosystem and the others, you need to remember, even in the darkest period, you can get the best innovation. And that's what you want to be looking for, right? With that said, I want to summarize, I've taken way too much of your, beer time, right? Mobile has been revolutionary, but remember, anything that you do with mobile has a social, cloud, and analytics component. It's not just mobile. It's a perfect storm of three things coming together. And those business models have changed. Even though this topic is more skewed towards technology, think about the business model implication in every aspect of it, right? And you're moving into a world where things are going to be done for you and not done by you. Focus on technologies that will amplify the ability for a human being to absorb technology as much as possible. And remember, technology of the future is going to change lives. Most of us, we will all live longer. You know that, right? Our kids will live potentially up to 120 years. It's going to change lives. It's going to kill incumbents. Incumbents have to change, otherwise they're going to die in the industries. And every industry is going to go through a transformation. And in addition to that, all I have to say is there is going to be $1 trillion plus impact. $1 trillion impact means if you're just playing in that space, you will make money. A rising tide lifts all boats. So just remember this, the technologies of the future, new business models, incumbents have to struggle, lives are going to be changed, and every industry is going through liquefaction, and most importantly, we are moving into a new era where life is going to be far more different. Thank you very much for your time, and I would love to stay on and take any questions from you, and I hope this evening was worth it for you guys. Thank you. All right. Usually at this point in time in San Francisco, people are running towards pizza and beer. But any questions? No? It was very clear. Yeah, go ahead.
Do we need wait for next recession to make a new revolution? Or it's already now?
Can you repeat the question?
Do we need to wait for a new recession to get a new IT revolution?
No, I don't think so. That was just an interesting correlation because out of the last, if you look at the two recessions that happened back to back, what happened was something awfully bright. You got 4 new technologies that came together and created a perfect storm to create the next. So if there are 3 recessions that happen one behind the other, I think only good things are going to come out of it. Right? So I think it sounds a little bit philosophical, but if you actually look back, look at the socio-economic. You looked at world's population. You looked at the tsunami of information coming, the movement. So we are all becoming digital hippies. I'll have a digital hair. So I think that's where the world is growing. Any other questions?
In your opinion, what's going to be the next big technology, like the internet or the TV or the radio, is going to change lives, like dramatically?
Well, I said, we have Internet of Things, which is, it's actually a big boring name, right?
It's too much. Internet of Things.
Yeah, it's too much. And if there are going to be so many unique devices connected to the internet, there needs to be a unique naming scheme. Do you know the unique identifier for Internet of Things? You know what it is called?
No.
It's called IDIoT. Come on, IDIoT.
IT of IT of IT.
All right. Anyway, Yeah, it was just a joke. Nonetheless, if you understand it later, please laugh. So robotics, huge, right? That's below the stack innovation that's happening. And I think things like human genome sequencing, so that today, carers, we take our cars for maintenance, oil change, but we don't do preventive maintenance on our own body. We go to a doctor after something has gone wrong. We've got this whole thing backwards. So with genome sequencing, I think things are going to change. And it took, for the first time to sequence a gene, it took 13 years. You can do it in an hour, right? And you will be able to sequence your gene on your phone very soon. So all that, I think that's, anything that can fundamentally improve the quality of human life, I think that's going to happen. I'm very optimistic about the future, and so should you be.
So you told us about Internet of Things, and besides lectures, you also play with new technology, right? So how does your house look like?
How does my house work?
Yeah, I mean, you walk into, towards the door, it opens because it knows you are near the door, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you have a robot.
No, for example, home automation, even today, if you go it's not too expensive. AL locks, Lockitron, you have those proximity-based technologies, but you always want to use multi-factor authentication, right? I mean, it's otherwise someone stealing your phone and walking close to the door, you don't want that. It's something that you have, something that you know, and something that works in combination. There was a company called NYMI, N-Y-M-I. What it does is, it's based on your ECG, right? It takes your ECG and something that you have with you, along with something that a password. But again, it's very, very useful, the three-factor authentication. So it's happening. Connected home, even though it is kind of kludgy right now, it's gonna smoothen out very soon. Question?
I have a question. Actually, I'm working in all 4 you talked about it's cloud, we do mobile and do all this thing like proximity and all. And there is a big problem between those big guys like Google, like all other Amazon. They collect data, they do analytics, and they don't share. They don't share with small. We collect our data on our own, but our market is like Ukraine and maybe few nearest countries. It's small. It's not enough to do some big data research. It's not enough for doing anything true for the world in our research. So, don't you think in nearest future will be some mechanism to share data with those big guys, and maybe they will share some data for us?
I think all those big guys are lying. They share data with the government. Those bastards.
Don't you think it's possible?
Yes.
Sometimes.
I think the protocols for data sharing right now are not there. It's very scary. People who have data can do something awfully dark, right? I mean, you have to be very, very careful. So I think we are in very early days. I think if you need products and services, right, you'll have to share your data, not just with one team, but also with the other teams. So data sharing is going to be the norm, but there are going to be rules and regulations around it. But in the near future, if you're working on a specific industry vertical, for example, there is one of the startups here on Salon.
Yeah.
Is he there?
Middle.
Yeah? Okay, middle. All right. And the data that they collect, Google won't have that kind of information. They are collecting data and, people, how often someone gets a haircut, a massage, a pedicure, a manicure. And, as John pointed out earlier, when he and I had a discussion, offline discussion, you can provide specific services that Google can't provide. Google is not collecting data about how often I get a haircut. I don't get a haircut.
Really?
So, I think micro, right? Yeah, I mean, I think if you're focusing specifically on your industry, there's a lot that can be done. If the more and more generic you go, how many of you use Google now? Oh, but you know, I don't find it relevant. Half the time it tells me things that I don't want to know because it's not relevant. So if you collect data which is like broad spectrum, it's almost impossible, at least in today's world, to give meaningful analytics that can do things for you. So you have to be focused on the kind of data that you're looking for. And I really think, you know, there is that white space that you can go after. But tell me more about what you're working on and maybe, you know, we can talk about it, okay?
Okay.
All right, next question.
Thank you very much for your presentation, very interesting. And the question is about HP that you work for, like with the crisis and HP being pretty much making money around the box company. How did you as a company, I mean not your personal HP, manage that thing to transform now, and what are you doing now, and how are your strategy looking like to heading into this Internet of Things? Like what are you going to focus to make money?
So if you actually go look at some of the future direction, you know, the company is moving, you know, everybody knows where we are, and it's a transformation that you need to move, you know, not along the horizontal vector, you know, you have to go at the 45-degree angle, and everybody is doing that. Even Microsoft is doing that. You know, all the incumbents have to change. You change or die, right? So investment in software, there are analytics companies that we bought, and that business is doing extremely well. So it's about transforming, and you got to transform or die. So I mean that's the mantra. But good question though. Any others? Right, at the back.
I have a question about business model, way of monetization of shared economy services. What kind of way of monetization would be more preferable for shared economy services such like Uber or commission, subscription, something like that?
It's a great question. In the world of shared economy, remember, there are two parts always. It's like a platform. There is a supply side, there's a demand side, and the supply and demand side keeps changing, right? You guys know the platform theory. Yesterday, I spoke about the platform theory to some of the startups in Happy Farm. You're able to hear me without the mic, right? Yeah. For the whole hour, I've been holding a mic in my hand. So, when you talk about, you know, the supply side and demand side, let's take the world of IoT. Let's not talk about Uber for now. Uber, you know, you have a driver side, independent car, driver owner. On the other side, you have the end user, right? It's a platform, and in any platform, there are three exchanges that happen in any platform. First one is information is exchanged. So you can make money on information that is exchanged. Advertisement, for example, is an example of a business model where you make money on information. The second thing in any platform is commerce. For those of you who have used Uber, it's very simple. I basically press a button, it knows where I'm standing, the driver either calls me or picks me up from the place. I sit in the car, I drive to the location, and I walk out. I don't pay any money from my pocket at that time, but it takes from my credit card or my bank, you know? So you can make money on that financial transaction. The second thing that goes through the platform is money. The third thing is goods. There are many digital services where goods go through the platform too. So there's a supply and the demand side. You think Nest, that Google bought. You know how Nest makes money? It's not because that thermostat, which is cute looking, you know, they're making money only on hardware. No, Nest gets money from the electricity company between $20 to $30 per thermostat per year. Did you know that? How many of you knew that? So,
Here.
I'm sorry?
We don't have a lot of math.
No, but about the business models, right? So, and then, let's say you're the owner of an apartment complex, and an apartment complex is a shared economy, right? You know, you have tenants who come and go. You will see services to the tenant, services to the landlord. You will always make sure in any sharing economy-based business models, you know, you're making money on two ends. You're leveraging one from the other, okay? Any other question? All right, well, all right.
Do you think that at any given point there will be a moment where data won't become as valuable as it is right now? I mean, like 10, 20 years perhaps, there will be so much data that it won't be valuable anymore.
So, there might be redundant data. I mean, you know, you listen to the same song 3 times, so you store it once. At this point in time, data points, and that's why I said you take all the data and throw it into, I use the word garbage. Do you remember garbage? And then I said Hadoop, and then you have to run analytics. So you have to make meaning, you got to see patterns in data. And the frequency of data, it's not just about the data, but the frequency in which you get the same data also tells you a story. So, don't know, you know, I don't know much about, you know, that long in the future. For now, you know, I'm going to make this statement that data is the most valuable natural resource in the world. And don't tell that to your girlfriend or wife. So, it's diamonds. Anything else? All right.
Okay.
I think everybody is cursing you. They're like, you're between me and the beer. Come on.
Now we have only 7 billion of people, and Internet of Things will be about trillions devices. And how long it takes that humans are not not necessary anymore? Our future is
iRobot.
Matrix style, right?
Matrix style, or maybe zoo, good zoo for people and robots everywhere. What do you think about?
I told him,
And how long it takes to be there?
I told him not to drink during the day.